I thought you were going.
That's not what we talked about.
No, you were going.
I think the tacos got to your brain.
Excuse me?
I know. Because you told me you were going first.
No, you said you were going first.
Oh, my God.
That's it. The gloves are coming off.
Hold my earrings. Wait. That's a perfect topic. How about we talk about boxing?
That's a good idea.
Great idea.
You go first.
Okay, thanks. I will.
Buckle up. It's time for Kewanee Memory Lane, where we cruise down the 4 lanes of Kewanee history with a detour of fun uncovering the past, coming to you straight from the Kewanee Historical Society in the heart of downtown Kewanee. Here are your hosts, Marianne and Leanne.
Hi, I'm Marianne.
And I'm Leanne.
And we are back for more Kewanee Memory Lane. What have you been up to lately?
Well, just living the dream. Isn't that the most Midwest thing to say?
I know. I am in a short sleeve shirt, loving it. Got my sandals on. I'm ready for a pedicure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The sun's shining. We should be outside doing yard work.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not.
But right now, I just wanted to talk about how Kewanee is the boxing center of the world.
At least it was at one time.
She's right. It was at one time, probably about 100 years ago. And
only 100.
Yeah. I've done a lot of research, and one of my topics I'm going to talk about today is Hayden Stuhlsatz, or Young Stuhley.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you he is not the original Young Stuhley.
Huh.
No.
I did not know that.
His brother Al, A-L, his brother Al was the original Young Stuhley. He was fighting, I think, from 1913 to about 1921.
Okay.
But he stayed more local. And this was Stuhley's dad, Jack. It was his brother.
Oh, it was his brother.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Jack was a baker. You have Al being a Stuhley, and then for some reason, Stuhley and his brother started boxing at a very young age.
Okay.
And, yeah. I just found it very interesting. But I want to share this quote first that I heard. It just makes me giggle when I hear it. It was written by a former Star Courier reporter named Kurt Hendricks in 1980.
Okay.
Boxing was as big in Kewanee as hogs and bootlegging.
And we all know bootlegging was pretty darn big. So.
That's a topic that we've talked about a lot.
Right,
and I just really loved that. Hayden's family moved around a lot with their dad. And they were in Montana at one time when he was 10 years old, and that's when Hayden started boxing. He was 10, and his dad would have him and his brother in a ring and fight for money. Well, people would throw the money in the ring as they were fighting, and it was like a good show. And I can't imagine, I have kids, I can't imagine having my 2 sons duke it out against each other.
Like, full on,
and like,
bloody noses
we're gonna,
and stuff?
and it was, I have a news article, and they expected a better showing next time, and it had something to do with the American Legion, I believe.
Okay.
But anyway, Jack moved his family around a lot. They didn't stay in Montana. They eventually came back to Kewanee, and Stuhley attended high school at Kewanee High School.
Okay.
And
about what time was that?
Oh, gosh. I would say the mid-20s.
Okay.
He did not finish his high school career. He decided he wanted to be a boxer. In 1926, at the age of 15, he decided, okay, I'm going to box.
Okay.
And he started getting some local bouts. Like I was talking about, this was Boxing Center. But I do want to say that at that time, his career was very important to him, and he wanted to really make a name for himself. And he regretted that he did not marry his high school sweetheart. And to the best of my knowledge, this was his high school sweetheart that he never married.
Okay.
Don't know her name. If anybody knows her name, I would love to know her name. I've not been able to uncover that. But that was
So was this sort of like when?
I think maybe they met up later. I'm not really sure. We have this, we have a lot of pictures in the museum. And this was there. I know Larry Locke. I don't know. I'm going to have to hit him up. See if he can tell me.
Yeah.
But I don't know her name, but we have this picture. And that was his one regret in life, was not marrying her.
Okay.
And then he saw a lot of the world and did a lot of things. But like I said, Kewanee was considered quite a boxing center. Grand Theater on North Main Street,
Okay.
like where Kewanee Theater is. I almost said Kewanee Farm, but Kewanee
Yeah,
Theater.
right.
And then the Dreamland Dance Hall. And Leanne and I were talking about this.
Yeah, we don't quite know if that was like the Dreamland Theater had a stage or something like that.
Right, we're not sure. So, and then I uncovered recently there was one above Mercer's Grocery Store, which was at 801 Rose Street, which is getting closer to the old boiler shop site, but on the other side of the road, and then above J.P. Brady's bootleg joint. Now, I tried looking at a city directory. Don't you have... I forgot we were going to do our show and tell. Don't you have a city directory over there?
Yeah.
And so, I don't think in that...
No, it doesn't in that. Of course, it's going to say John P. Brady, bootlegging joint. No, but I think that at that point, I think his family may have still owned the corner.
Okay.
Because I know that his dad, Thomas, owned the corner of 3rd and Chestnut, where the distributors were.
Oh, wow.
And so and during Prohibition, they always talk about John Brady's place.
Yeah, they owned a good amount of property.
Yeah.
I would love to go in that building that's on the corner.
We'll have to.
We'll have to talk
we'll
to
have to
somebody
work
about
on
that. Yeah. So a lot of boxing was going on, a lot of local boxers, but first I want to focus on Hayden.
Yeah.
He was one of the best fighters from Kewanee. He
Okay.
began his amateur career at the age of 15. Like I said, he won 97 of 99 bouts.
Wow.
And they said he had a really wild left punch. It would just come at you. You didn't know it was coming.
Okay.
And I'm left-handed, but I tend to... I don't know.
You fight with your right hand?
Let's try it. No.
That's okay.
I don't know which
I'm
one.
a lover, not a fighter.
Oh, yes. I don't know. He decided to turn pro in 1929. He signed with a manager named Eddie Stanton of Hollywood, California.
Okay.
So Stuhley's like, okay, I'm going to make a name for myself. His dad always wanted him and his brother to become professional boxers. Well known. And I think it's because of how his brother Al was a boxer. And I don't know if their dad Jack had ever tried it, but his brother never did, but he did. And he was described as having showmanship, ability, personality, and when he entered a room, people were just drawn to him. He had like a Clark Gable profile. So, wow.
That's cool. Like that picture, he's very dapper. Mm-hmm.
He always walked around in a fancy suit and had a red carnation in his lapel.
Is what I hear.
I think they said a Panama hat.
I have no idea.
I know those were big in the 80s when I was in high school. We thought we were cool. Wear Panama hats sometimes. I don't know what you guys did it where you went, but...
We were farmers. Hicks and farmers. Yeah, no.
Yeah. But I just like
a dress-up cap was a clean baseball cap.
Pardon me?
A dress-up hat was a clean baseball cap.
Oh, nice. Nice. There you go. So when he turned pro, he had, oh my gosh, I think it was 115 fights. So I'm gonna just kind of chop it down. He won 89 of those, lost 24.
Okay.
And 2 were a draw. So they just kept duking it out, and neither one's giving up. And they're like, I don't know, we're just gonna call it a draw.
Okay.
So he really, he fought from 1929 to 1940, and he really, really, really wanted to be the middleweight champion of the world.
Okay.
And he almost had it. It was a non-title fight. I just want to say first, welterweight Sammy Aguirre, he beat him. Middleweight champion of Illinois, Ray Tramble, and former lightweight champion of the world, Sammy Mendel. But he had to fight the Middle West champion, Freddie Steele. And he was supposed to win this fight. But according to Stuhley, and this is in a newspaper report, a gangster named Frank Carboni, who was head of the Midwest Boxing Syndicate.
Uh-oh.
I know. When I was reading that, and I thought it really was in the paper. So this was talked about.
Okay.
They put a finger on the champion in the midst of a match. His manager told him, you got to take a knockdown or we're going to end up in the river. And I'm like, whoa, wow.
So the head of the Midwest mob was the head of the boxing syndicate or whatever.
Pretty much said, like, something's going to happen if you don't do this.
I wonder who had money on the other guy.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not going there.
But I want to go back to where he traveled so many places in his career. Texas, Hollywood, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Sydney, Australia.
Huh.
And he was really known to be Kewanee's hero at this time. He was really living large. But also in the middle of it, kind of, his manager was bungling his career, taking his money, encouraging to throw fights. So it was just kind of like he was adored and loved by people in Kewanee and really well known for boxing. But on the other hand, some of this other negativity going on and some family stuff. I know when this was going on, his dad, Jack, was a baker. And like I said, isn't this a beautiful cake?
That is a beautiful cake. That's in 1918, it says?
1918. Okay. He still had a bakery in Kewanee. So they moved to Kewanee, Montana, back and forth. And Dad would open different bakeries, close them a year later. And eventually his last bakery was here in Kewanee. And then in 1922, he opened it and died in 1923. But beautiful.
Okay. Now, was there a mom?
Yeah, Stuhley's mom meant the world to him. Okay. He would do anything for her. He really adored her, and he lived with her until he died in 79. Okay. Or maybe she died first. I can't remember, but she was very much a part of his life.
Okay, good.
And then his brother Paul had moved out of state somewhere. So his dad died in 1923, and Stuhley would have been like 12. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So, he was drafted into the Army in 41, and he was a boxing instructor and promoter in association with Joe Louis. So he's rubbing elbows with somebody. Yeah. The heavyweight champion of the world. He saw action in Holland, Belgium, France, and in the Battle of the Bulge.
Okay.
Which I'm not a real up on all that. I'm like, that sounds like a pretty big thing. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
It kind of was a big thing.
He was discharged honorably after 5 years of service. Okay, then he came back to Kewanee. And I know a lot of people saw him in Kewanee, in and out of the bars, up and down Whiskey Row. Hey, drinks for everybody, drinks for everybody. I read a newspaper article. He had walked into a hamburger joint and said, drinks for everybody. And they said, this isn't a drink place. He said, okay, then hamburgers for everybody. He would, any kid on the street that, he would come into contact with, here's a shiny dollar coin. Remember Stuhley,
Yeah, I've heard of him handing silver dollars out.
And I read, there's a Kewanee guy, he had shared some memories of Stuhley. He still has one of the Stuhley dollars.
Really?
I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He tried to establish a Young Stuhley boxing center. Okay. And
this was like after the war, so in the late 40s, early 50s?
Yep. He worked as a maintenance man at Pleasant View Cemetery. He was a construction worker, worked highway maintenance, and really wanted to help train young people and keep that boxing, because I don't think boxing is as big as it used to be.
Right, not in town.
Not in town anyway. And it was huge here, and I think he wanted that to live on and carry on, and he really wanted to mentor them. And I know two people he did for sure train was Tony Munoz and Freddie Segura.
Okay.
And they're long gone, but these are guys that were my dad's. They'd be 90-something. So he really loved Kewanee, and I think it was sad for him because, you fight 115 matches, you might have some brain injuries, you're drinking, you might act in a certain way, and maybe people don't look at you the same way. And so I think it kind of like towards the end, it was kind of a different experience for him with people. So
yeah, there's a lot of people around now that still remember him, and the stories I've heard is later in his later years, or not later years, but after the war when he came back, he was kind of mean.
Yeah.
And and whether that was, mental illness or being hit about the head and shoulders so many times, or the war, it could be, it could be the drinking.
Well, he lost his dad at a young age, and I know his dad had a brother that died, and Stuhley wouldn't have known him because he wasn't born yet. his dad's brother was struck by lightning in 1904 on the east side of Kewanee.
Oh my gosh.
Getting his horse from the pasture. And from what I read in the paper, he put his arm up and the lightning struck him in front of two other brothers. And, that was just very traumatic for the family.
Sure. Yeah.
And then being moved around a lot.
Right.
It's just a lot. So.
Was his dad able to provide for the family as a baker? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I think he was a successful baker.
Okay.
But I never knew Jack, and I couldn't get a lot. Obviously, I didn't know him, and I couldn't get a lot of information on him. Why he went back and forth, what was going on with him.
Yeah,
he would enter in a partnership in Montana or Kewanee, and it just kind of fell apart. And I know after he died, the wife continued the bakery for a little bit.
Oh, okay, okay. Where was the bakery? Do you know? Or was that the one on Rose?
Well, no. He first started on
the Rose was a boxing. Sorry.
He first started at the corner of Main and 6th Street with a wagon.
Oh, with a wagon.
With a wagon.
So he sold
selling bread
out of the wagon. Okay.
Bread out of a wagon.
Okay.
And then he eventually got around, I think it was 211 East 3rd Street. He went in,
211 was next door to Brady's. Because
I meant East. I meant East. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
So he would have been next to where the MOC was, where Cookies is now.
Yeah. Okay.
So, because I was looking it up and there's nothing there. It's just, it's one, anyway, it's right in that area.
Yeah.
The family lived nearby and he had a bakery there. He was in partnership with Herman Kohlberg.
Okay.
I've never heard that name before. Means nothing to me.
Okay.
And within a year, Jack dissolved the partnership with Herman. And then he marries Emily Verbeck, which is Stuhley's mom.
Okay.
In 1908. And then in 1909, Jack and his brother Peter buy the East Side Bakery from Herman.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Hey, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in. Bought it from him, Kohlberg. And then in 1917 to 1920, Jack moved his family to Helena, Montana.
Huh.
And that is when I found the story, because I'm on newspapers.com. That was a good resource. Yeah. I found that the two brothers, this was in the Montana newspaper, that the two brothers, they're like 8 and 10, they're going to fight each other. And like I said, the spectators are going to throw money. And I just, that was just crazy to me. But in Montana, he had the Stuhlsatz Brothers Quality Bakery. And then he opened the Ideal Bakery, making donuts and fancy pastries. And somebody that was involved with that was very upset because they were taking the middles out of the donuts. I always thought donuts had middles. The circle, the hole in the middle. But when they were doing this in 1921, there was they didn't like how they were making the donuts without the hole in the middle. Without
the hole in the middle.
With the hole in the middle. I cannot say this right. So isn't that weird?
Well, here's an aside.
Okay.
So in the Laura Ingalls Wilder books,
okay,
they were talking in Farmer Boy. Almanzo's mother was talking about making donuts, and this was in the late 1800s.
Okay.
And they were twisted. They're the twisted kind because when you fried them, when one side got done, it automatically flipped over. And she didn't like the newfangled ones with the hole in the middle because you had to turn them. So that was before the turn of the century. So that's wrong.
Well, because this was in 1921, they didn't like the hole in the middle. Well, but that was in the
east. Maybe it just now got over
to the west.
Okay.
I don't know. Then he sold it.
Sorry, that was a little.
No, it's fine, but. So, Jack sells the bakery, puts his family back in Kewanee. He goes to Seattle, then he goes to North Dakota, then he goes to Montana, and he's like, I guess I'll open this in Kewanee again. And it was a very popular bakery. Well, people were excited about it, and then...
Did he make donuts with no holes? With holes in it?
I didn't read any more about that. But then, sadly...
Inquiring minds want to know.
Not long after they opened the business, he allegedly committed suicide. And so that was really a tough thing for Stuhley to deal with. And then, being 12 years old.
Right.
And just kind of moving all over hither and yon. And I think, too, when he started boxing, maybe he wanted to honor his uncle who had been a boxer and took the name, So I just thought that was really interesting. And I don't know if I wanted to tie in with your story about the fire of 42. Mm-hmm. Does the name Al Stuhlsatz mean anything for you?
Yes, it does. That's interesting. Yeah. Al Stuhlsatz was the fire chief when the fire happened in April of 42.
So after his boxing career, he got married. During his boxing career, he got married, and then he said, "I'm done." He became a firefighter, and then I read he was the fire chief in 35.
Oh, okay.
And then after 42, I didn't keep following. I don't know how long that went, but I wanted to mention some other boxers. You have a picture over there, Mickey Grothy. Or Max Grothy.
This one.
Yep, that is my neighbor Joanne. That is her brother. He was a Golden Glove champion in 1944.
He's got muscles.
He's got muscles. He's a little guy. I don't know how much he weighed, what his weight class was. But Joanne, I won't tell you how old she is, but she's my neighbor. She's a lovely woman, and she has a lot of memories of him boxing as a young guy. And I know Stuhley kind of mentored him as well. Would go to some of the events with him. We have a picture here in the museum of those two getting into a car, getting ready to go somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to find that one.
Yeah. Billy Papke was a middleweight champion of the world in 1908. I know we've heard a lot about Papke. I found this card with Billy when he was going to fight Eddie McGorty.
Okay.
McGorty, don't know if I'm saying it. And then Al when he was going to fight Steve Herrick.
Right.
So the Herrick brothers, they were big boxers too in the area.
Not related to the Herricks, to Steve Herrick that is currently in town.
Probably not.
No, I've asked him.
Oh, okay.
So I know
okay. Millie Van Eunek was known as the Singing Fighter in 1934. So I don't know if he hit you and then sang at you or sang and then,
Okay, it was
maybe
a guy
he said
named Millie?
Millie Van Eunek. I don't know what his given name was, and I wondered if he sang "Hit You with My Best Shot." Remember Pat Benatar? Yeah. Okay.
We won't go into that.
Don Allison didn't pull up a lot on him. Frank Schlinwine. I couldn't find his name for the longest time. His boxing name was Young Shug.
Sounds like a rapper.
I'm Young Shug, yo. But he later became police chief of Kewanee. We got boxers. They became police chief, fire chief. He was fighting in really early, became police officer in 1925, was later police chief.
Okay.
Yeah, by 1935. So it's so coincidental, and I don't believe it's weird. You got Stuhlsatz, who became fire chief by 35, and you got Frank Schlinwine, Young Shug. Yo, he became police chief by 35. I just found that really interesting. And so that's just kind of my info on that, and I'm kind of doing it backwards today. We're going to do show and tell here at the end. But I wanted to give a thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wygant of Bishop Hill. Her grandfather was a best friend to Stuhley, and they provided a lot of photos, letters to and from Hayden.
Did they just contact you and said, "Hey, I have all this stuff"?
They did. I guess they had reached out to somebody about 8 or 10 years ago, wanting to share some info. No takers. He called me. I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
And he did have items that we had never seen before in the museum, so we were able to borrow them, scan them, and now we have them in our collection.
Okay.
But I wanted to thank them. That was very nice of them. So her grandfather was a Benison, which is another Kewanee name.
Right.
But when he married, he moved to Galva, so that's kind of how it got, But Mr. Benison and Stuhley stayed in touch. But just, I had heard about Stuhley too and didn't really know a lot or appreciate maybe the hard times he went through that kind of shaped the way things turned out for him. And it kind of made me more sympathetic for him and wish that Kewanee had shown a little more kindness for him. But that's just my own thought. So
Right. But what year did he pass?
1979.
1979, so quite, well.
He was 60
I'm
something.
old,
Well,
but
he was
that's quite recently.
Yeah. He was born 1911, died. He was 68. And I would have been 10 at the time. I don't remember it happening. I know he got hit by a train. A lot of people said it was not intentional. Some people said it was.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. But I know when he walked around Whiskey Row and venturing into different places, he often had pictures and a lot of papers under his arm. He had the carnation. He had he wanted people to remember, like all his glory days. And at that time, I think people were kind of like, we're done. We don't want to see this anymore. So I thought that was kind of sad.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of sad. So,
Well, so let's move on from that to other glory days.
Yeah.
What did you bring for show and tell?
Well, I brought a Weathersfield yearbook, 1974, and a Kewanee High School yearbook, 1985.
Okay.
And I brought both schools because our town does have both school districts.
Right.
And I wanted to show love and appreciation to both. But I just want to let you guys know, the viewers know, that we do have a pretty good collection of yearbooks. If you guys are doing any research, fun photos. I love looking at the old photos.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to show them to you guys so that you're...
we do need some of the more current ones,
we do.
don't we?
We do. We have recently received some more donations, but if anybody has some in the late 90s, early 2000s or 10s, that would be great.
Yeah. And also we do have duplicates, so we do have some of those for sale also. So you can, if you are missing your yearbook, if we have a duplicate of ours, they are for sale downstairs on the first floor.
Yep. So always grateful to get something like that.
Yeah.
And what did you bring? I did mention it earlier.
Yeah, books were the theme of the day. This is part of my favorite collection. This is, I like to call, a nosy neighbor book. It's a city directory.
I love, these are my favorite too.
Yeah,
I love it.
You can find so much in these books.
Yeah.
And they are, we have them, I think they were up until like 2010, I think.
I think it was 2010 when that's where our collection stops. We start in 1876.
Yes, 1876.
We jumped to 1893.
Which is sad.
Yeah, because
I
we're
was looking
missing
for something.
and we just can't find it.
And so these are great. They are divided into alphabetical order, and then you can go in the back, and it's by street. So every number on a street is listed, and then it has ads and stuff, and it lists like all of the dairies and all of the...
Oh, it looks like it's divided into categories.
Categories,
like if you needed
right,
a grocery store or a beautician or...
a confectionery and ice cream retailer.
Somebody could really sit down and make a little map of their neighborhood.
And see what was there?
And see what was there.
Right?
Like, hey, John Adams used to... Not John Adams, I'm just random.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I do love those books.
No,
and
I
it
love these
also
books.
told you if they own their home or rented. I don't know why people needed to know what their profession was.
What their profession was and
they
where
were-
they worked.
If they were a widow or widower. I'm like, that's like way too much information.
Which I'm happy that it was, but I'm kind of glad that it's not anymore. But
Which kind of
you can always find that crap
it kind of
out on the
reminds me
internet.
too of newspapers back in the day before there was TV, maybe not a lot of radio. Let's say you and your husband went somewhere. They would write, Lee and Rob went to Minnesota and they were gone for 7 days and they brought back their cousin Millie and and she stayed and
Or it would be like
we had a party.
It would be like so and so 502 South Vine Street. You know, right there in the newspaper. Say where
They blocked off the streets and had a party. Something, you know.
Right, yeah.
Or John and his wife had a steak dinner with and they invited the mayor and I don't know. I'm just making this up, but that's how it was.
Yeah, it was. I think that's fascinating.
And because HIPAA is a thing now, thank God. It used to be. Marianne was in the hospital. She had her tonsils out, and I'm like, they shared that in the
She's
paper.
recovering.
She's recovering
on
nicely.
the 3rd floor of Kewanee Hospital.
And I'm like, send her a note. She's in room 301. I'm like, what? Yeah. So anyway.
Well, John's giving us the signal that we are done for this episode. But we would like to thank everybody for continuing to watch and sharing their information with us. We appreciate it. If you have any topics that you would like to see on Kewanee Memory Lane, give us a shout out at KewaneeMemoryLane.com, or you can leave us a message or a comment under this video.
And we have snail mail, 125 North Tremont.
125 North Tremont, Kewanee Historical Society. But we thank you for viewing this episode with us today, and we hope to see you at the next one.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
Thanks for cruising with us today. We hope you enjoyed the show and you'll join us for our next cruise down Kewanee Memory Lane.